We're gonna get started. All right. Well, thanks for coming. I see lots of faces I've seen before, and I think what we're gonna try to do today is something we've never done before. So bear with us. If it sucks, who cares? Hopefully, what we have is something that you'll like and something that you will use. We felt like giving back to this community that we're all part of, and that's what this is really kind of about. So we'll get started. What we're going to talk about today, we're going to try to bring forward is, just to open our minds a little bit about the technologies that we use and how we use them and where we want to see them to go. I'm not going to stand up here and do a lot of vendor bashing and all that stuff. There's plenty of talks about that, but at the end of the day, it's just about making these things, these neat, cool programs do what you want to do. And that's where Spicy Mango came from, is a need, something that we really needed to have and something that we were trying to do. We said, we just can't get these things to do what we want them to do, so we're going to have to write some code to do it. And that's where Chris and Steve and some other folks come in and really kind of help us with that. So at any time, just throw something at me or Chris, throw us off base, get us off our message, ask us a question that has nothing to do with anything, whatever you want to do. If you just want to turn this into an open discussion, that's great. We're here to have fun. And I guess I should mention too, just a big thanks to everybody that puts this conference together. I can tell you when we came here last year, the first one, it was eye-opening again for somebody like me who's been in the business for a long time now. Going con after con, being there, doing that. This really kind of gets you back to those roots. It's kind of the conference that really kind of demonstrates what it's really all about. And I came out of last year's with a refreshed mindset, which is not easy to do when you've been heads down in the security world for a long time. You really kind of, you kind of get that feeling of repetition and it's madness, and it just drives you nuts. But when you come here, it's not that way. It reminds you why you do it. It reminds you why you care. So thanks to all the DerbyCon organizers. Thanks to the folks that put this together, and thanks for having us. I think this is an honor and a pleasure, and we'll get right down to it. Hello. A little bit about me. I've got about 17 years experience split between private and government. I'm a Unix geek. I love all things Nix. I've been around that world for quite some time. I'm a busy dad. I enjoy doing that. We like to do crazy things on our bikes and our skateboards and scare everybody while we do it. I'm a gearhead. I like tuning and tweaking cars and things that go vroom. Chris, a little bit about you?
My name is Centore. I'm also kind of split public-private experience. Pretty much dad as well. I like poker, I like chess, and I like writing Python.
Boring guys up here, boring guys, for sure. And of course, this presentation is intended for educational purpose only and does not replace your independent professional judgment. Statements herein are expressed opinions of the participants individually and are not the opinion or position of their respective employers. We do not endorse or approve nor assume responsibility for the content, accuracy, or completeness of the information presented, and attendees should note that sessions are recorded and blah, 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 blah. Anyway. So the world has changed. We all know that, right? We've been involved in this for quite some time. Just a show of hands, anybody that's been doing this stuff for 5 years, raise your hand. Anybody that's been doing it for 5 years, raise your hand. Just keep them up for a second. That's it, okay? So 10 years, leave them up. 15 years, leave them up. Now we're getting to my peoples. So it's changed in that time. It's really changed in that time. Today, information is ubiquitous and free. It's all over the place. We've seen it go from, the very early days of just the simple web to today where it's a social platform. It is a society in and of itself. The things that are happening there today go without saying are truly a change in the way we as a human race exist. And there's been a real paradigm shift too, coupled with that, with the way we combat threats, like going from the kind of the mindless malware of the early days to organized adversaries with a name and a cause. And this is a big shift recently. And that's kind of what really kind of gave birth to this platform that we've got. Everybody familiar with RASGAS? What's going on with the cutting sword of justice? That's pretty scary stuff. It goes without saying too that just demonstrates how wildly things have changed. Like 30,000 some odd machines. Big deal. What's going on is just seeking to damage reputation. It's a very, very valuable target now. If I can damage your reputation, it's almost as good as stealing your money. Big switch there. And the impact this has just in general, if like I said, as a raising kids in this world and thinking about those types of things and how society operates now versus the way it did then, you've got this component now that you have to think about, and it's extraordinary. So just last year, 18 of 46 major insurance organizations were breached. That's according to Deloitte. And if you just think about what that means, if you just kind of put your mind around what insurance companies have, and many of you may know verbatim what they have, but they've got everything, all of it. Everything you've ever done, everything you've ever smoked, drank, ridden in, driven. They've got that type of data that's sitting there, and almost 50% of them lost it. So just the world is completely different, and we know that. And then to introduce this human element, kind of getting back to adversaries with a name and a cause. When you introduce that with the techie challenges that we have, it really equates itself to just total unpredictability. And again, just to kind of go back, I'm not going to bash. I'm really going to try not to do that. But what you have today is inadequate. No matter what you're running, when you buy it, what you put on in the rack, it's inadequate. It's inadequate. You're going to spend an enormous amount of time, making significant modifications to these platforms. You are. You do it every day. We do it. We all do it. And quite frankly, I'm tired of that process. I'm tired of having to do that. I'm tired of having to thinking that having that false sense of security. Yeah, I think it'll get us about. It'll get us through the night at least, or let me get some rest. And the bottom line is it doesn't. You just don't know. You don't know how capable it really is, and sometimes they just fall flat on their face. 40% effective, if that. So there's too many tools providing very shallow and broad solutions, things that just don't add up to what we're trying to accomplish throughout our day. And most of them are designed to monitor data networks, not human networks. And I want to come back to that. Most of these tools are designed to monitor data networks and not human networks. What's behind that data? What's driving? What's that? What's the cause? What is that behind what the problem? The thing that we're trying to protect from, or the thing that we're trying to do. And if you put your head around all of that throughout your day, whether you're blue team, red team, black team, white team, whatever the color is, there are too many scenarios and possibilities, and introduce the human variable of unpredictability. You just cannot prepare for everything that's possibly out there, so you cannot give any real sense of assurance on what can happen. And contextualizing IDS and IPS, I think it was a great thing when we started to see signature-based detection come along, and we had Snort show up to the scene, and that's great. When we started putting context around that, it was even cooler, right? You could say, hey, this signature, I don't need to fire this off if it's for, if it's an Apache exploit headed toward an IIS server. I don't care about it. Great, good context. It gets us another step down the road. But that became so stale, so quick, almost as fast as it came in, it went away. So type of contextualization grows stale very fast. So what do we do about it? What do we want to do about it? These are the types of thoughts and types of things that generated this work that we did. We kind of got, I guess, keyed off to some of these notions. We're working closely in some of our experience in the gov space, and I, by no stretch of the imagination, can claim any experience there that I can claim, except that it's cool stuff. If you go out and you start reading about what is this open source intelligence, what is intelligence, what is the world of that, and how do they go about solve these real world problems that are independent of technology, right? We have real world problems that need to be solved every day that are very, very complex and over vast territories and vast cultures. So what do we do? How do we take some of that capability, what's going on, we know it's going on, in the world of nations, and introduce some layer to help us make better decisions in a world of technology. And we think that to be something that we can do with using open sources. So when I say that, it's in the context of things that are openly available for you to consume. Going back to that notion back to the notion of the ubiquitous and free statement. So it's out there for you to consume. You just got to reach out and grab it, or reach out and Google it, I guess. So if you can layer that in and provide that level of information that you get kind of in the regular world space into the technology world, then imagine what you can do with your tools and your techniques. Because you can provide intelligence to security analysts via open sources. And I'm not talking about the stuff that you go out and pay for. I'm not talking about, and we'll get to that in a second, I'm talking about things that are things that help you get to know your threat actor, what their methods are and what their cause is. If you get to know these things, you can provide a formidable defense strategy. You really can, if you know their methods, if you know what their cause is, and you know who they are. And it can be key. With that knowledge layered into any defense strategy, you can introduce delay, disruption, and disorganization to any attacker or anything that's going on, and that's a key component here in getting this valuable, actionable information layered into your defense strategy. And this stuff can be specific to your risks, not generic industry intelligence, not generic stuff that you're going to pay iDefense for or somebody else, which is all good stuff. It's specific, not like, hey, I want to know about whether or not semantic version whatever has a bug. I need to know that. I need to know it right away. This is stuff like I have a product that I care about, and if this product is being named or being beat up on the net, I need to know about that. I need to know what might happen. So it's specific to what your risks are as you define. And thinking about the future a little bit, why not start thinking about probability or intrusion prediction? Why not? I mean, if you know that you have threat actors, you know that people are planning things, you know that this stuff is going on, we know where they are, you know where they are, you know what their conversations are, you probably can pick up on some things that might happen, or things that have the potential to happen, or more probable to happen than not. Why not? Why not layer this stuff in? Pay somebody to do it. What about Stratfor? Pay them. These indicators are freely available. We don't want to pay for it. Again, coming from the community, being part of the community, this stuff is too expensive and too generalized. So let's do it as a community. Let's do it together. Let's explore what we did to solve some of these problems, and hopefully out of today, when we release the tool and show everybody where it is, we can get more people to come and help us with this effort, help us develop this platform, help us make it what we think it can really be. So enter Spicy Mango. You want to start up? So this is a tool. This is the demo part. This is the part where we really fall apart and start to really suck. So let's go for it and throw some questions at us. Chris, you want to go ahead? Well, I guess I can fill the space with a tap dance or something. Just a little bit about the tool.
All right, so this is just something we put together. It's not fully baked, it's beta, but gives us the ability to automate that process of collecting open source intelligence from various places in a modular way. It's kind of extensible. Let's see here. This is just the GUI. And of course it's jacked up. Let's see if I can shrink that down a little bit. All right. So we kind of put it together in like a dashboard style. This is mainly for incident responders and stuff. Just one more dashboard to look at. It's really meant to be more complementary to as Jason said before. You have your monitoring tools that monitor networks, data networks. This is more of a monitoring tool for, lack of a better term, human networks. And what we have is we have currently 3 modules. We have one for Twitter, one for Facebook, one for IRC. And what we do is we define keyword searches. I think I actually have a slide I was supposed to start with on that. So bear with me, sorry. Okay, we define keyword searches, which basically just establishes queries out to their APIs and pulls in data. What you want to do with these is cast a wide net. Just get as much information that could be potentially relative as possible, bring it in, normalize it, and then you can start doing transforms on it, and that's where the GUI sort of comes more into play. And we also try to take into account, like for instance, Twitter's API has operators that you can use in your queries, so support those. When it comes to the IRC module, basically what it does is spawns bots in whatever channels you're interested in monitoring, and you can use regular expressions to basically tell it what to bring back into the database. You can say, just give me it all, or you can say, if it's a keyword, if it's 2 keywords together, whatever. And then basically what we do is once that information is in, we can take additional keywords, give them weighted values, change thresholds so that you have sort of a high, medium, low, which is kind of something that everybody's used to seeing in these kind of consoles, and basically bubble up the interesting data from the noise. So just kind of now show you something. This is just sort of a random data set of information. So, the alerts and stuff, they're arbitrary. It's not full. Okay, that'll work. We start off here. I don't know if everybody can see that pretty good. All right, good. There's about 3,400 events or, rows of data in the database that was aggregated from the modules. And then based on the settings, which we'll get to in a second, we've got 1 high, 11 mediums, 5 lows. Again, this is not really based on criticality. It's more based on interest. So it's stuff that's going on, maybe it's geopolitical, as Jason said, maybe it has to do with a product or a brand or, company, location, whatever, something that you're interested in, something that you want to know if people are talking about it and what they're saying. So this is a trend over 12 hours for the alerts. If you get a high pop up, spike of red or yellow for medium, gray for low. Down below, this is just sort of your most recent alerts. And if you want to expand on this, you can look at where it came from, what module brought it in, the username, the message, the weight that you assign, which I'll get to in a second. You can also, obviously sort them there just by their priority. Then you have, on the other side of it, these are usernames coming from whichever module, if it supports a username, which all of ours, just happen to do at this point. They're last alerts. And so you can even see that in this, this one's got 2 coming in, one from the IRC, one for the Twitter, where this user just happened to use both names. And so it gives you sort of a context to maybe what might be going on. What does that mean? Does it actually, do you actually care about it, or do you not care about it? We got alerts by top weight, and then just keywords by hit. And then we have sort of a grid view here where you can search through your high, mediums, and lows. You can search all rows here if you want to look for zombies. We've got 4 rows to return that. If you wanted to get more specific and just search a particular column name, then you can do that as well. So it kind of helps you sort of dig down into the data, see what you're wanting to see. Likewise, we just thought it'd be a good idea to just go ahead and put all the events there for you, so that in case, as you're sort of digging through the data or whatever it is you're monitoring changes, you'll have the ability to, go back over your old data and see if there's anything that you want to add to your keywords, or if you want to, change the thresholding or something like that, so that your information is more accurate, more interesting to you. So this is really where we're configuring all of that. We've got the ability to add, delete, modify keywords and their weights. And over here we have the ability to change, by weight, what you determine as low, medium, or high. And again, this is highly customizable. I wish I could give you some kind of a, systematic approach to doing this, but it's really one of those things, kind of like spam filtering, where you just have to kind of tune it by feel until, you're getting the data that you want and you're ignoring the data that you don't want. But it's one of these things where the way we try to design to do it, because, single keywords, in random, unstructured data, are not going to be very interesting probably in and by themselves, and it's hard to systematically select out what you want. So basically what we have is the ability to define keywords, assign them weight values, so that maybe the sum total of the keywords, if they hit within a row of data, their combined totals will equal something that passes like a medium threshold or a high threshold. And so it kind of, builds some logic into it, so that, you actually return interesting data. And it works actually pretty well. But it's, highly flexible. We have here, just as a demonstration, we got a range for highs of 48 to 100. And we've got 2 keywords. Nothing in here actually totals anything above 48, but, zombie and attack, the total of that would be 50 points. And so, we just happen to have a row of data here that has that thing. The zombies will attack at dawn. So, you get some kind of, meaningful data out of that, hopefully. And if we, wanted to kick that out to a medium, then we could basically pull that threshold back, save that, and then, that same attack now becomes a medium. So you have the ability to sort of change it. Again, tuning is an unfortunate necessity, in working with something like this, but it's incredibly crucial if you spend a lot of time monitoring, these kind of social networks and stuff, and some of you may do that, may be part of your jobs. It's really useful to be able to pass this information once it's tuned to, maybe an incident response team or somebody, sitting behind a monitor at your company, and, basically have them, be able to see visually whether or not there's something interesting to look at, and get more people involved. Because it's, it's just too much to do for one person continuously 24/7. Let's see. Oh, the other thing that we can do is, what we found is sometimes a word is really not that useful in and of itself, but if it's attached to another word, I know it seems like I'm saying the same thing, by defining, well, why not just define another keyword and then just have those 2 combined weights equal to the thing that you want. The problem with that is the word on its own will still generate some point value. And so you're going to end up getting like just a ton of lows, and you really want to try to tune out as much. Even a low should still at least be semi-interesting. You don't want, so you can use regular expressions here. So what I can do is I can just delete, we'll just delete the attack, and we'll just pop in sort of regular expression. I don't know, we'll just change this to like 60. And then here's another option that you have. Basically, once this information is entered into the keywords, any additional rows that are coming in from your modules are going to be, immediately compared against whatever changes you made. But you have the option, just in case you, for some reason, didn't want to do it, to not go back and change, your original data. But if you want to, then you just choose, click this reanalyze button. And now that, that brings it up as a high, because now we've got, the regular expression match and the 60-point weighted value that comes with that. Let's see. Yeah, I think I'll move into the configuration files. When you start it up, there's basically two configuration files. Pardon? Can't read the blue?
Yeah. Can't see it.
Sin off? Hey. SYN space OFF. Okay, sorry guys. It's my first time using VI. All right, so basically, we have just some configurable options, like if you want to change the port of the web server. I should tell you, one of the things that we wanted to do, especially this is sort of an open source project, it's just, something we're trying to put together conceptually, make sure that it's useful for us and hopefully for other people as well. I didn't really want it to be something that you had to really heavily integrate into like Apache or, a back-end DBMS like, Postgres or whatever. So you basically have a web microframework. It's the bottle web microframework with Python. So it's got a self-contained web server, and it uses SQLite database because SQLite's actually really fast and incredibly easy to move around. It's all files. So you have the ability to configure the web view. Also, with the modules that we currently have, there's a few things that you can configure. One of the things we found, which is probably going to be problematic going forward with this, but it's just one thing you have to work around, is that the APIs change all the time. Twitter's, changing theirs. Facebook is, getting a little crazier too. But, as it currently stands, there's query intervals that if you exceed, they'll start kicking you out. So you can adjust how many times your instance of Spicy Mango goes out and requests data from the different APIs. And with a little tuning, you can kind of keep it to where that you can continually query for information without getting rejected by the API. And one thing I should say is that when you define those keywords that cast a wider net, that spawns a thread. So you have multiple threads going. So if you've got like 8 different things that you're trying to get out of Twitter, then you're going to have 8 different queries going on simultaneously. And we have that staggered in the code, but again, there were times when they would sort of all happen together, then Twitter would complain, kick us back out and everything. And it handles those exceptions. It's not going to crash on you. It's just, you're just kind of going to be fighting yourself, trying to get information. So by adjusting those intervals and how much data you retrieve per query, you can make Twitter's API happy or Facebook's API happy and, keep on chugging. So the last thing is just output, where you want it to go. You have consoles, kind of more for debug, but SQLite's on by default, and that's kind of, the meat of it anyway. And then there's a flat file option, which, is, I don't know how useful that is anymore, but it's there. And then, again, we have a keywords file that I said this is what you're actually telling the modules to query for. So these are actually independent than the other keywords. We just, oh, sorry. Don't kill me. We actually, happen to name them the same thing just to make it confusing for everybody, apparently. I'll probably change that at some point so that, you know which keywords you're talking about. It's retarded. But anyway, again, this is where I was going back to telling you about, for instance, with the IRC, we can use regular expression to determine once you're in the channel with a bot that it generates, what information you want back, or what information you want to ignore. And then Twitter's actually can make use of the Twitter's operators, their API operators and/or username, whatever. And Facebook is just really just a string search basically. So I couldn't find much in the way of additional information out of that. It actually uses the Graph API, huh?
Is it changes?
Yeah, it does change. So it's probably going to be a pretty dynamic project. Just trying to keep everything up to date. Let's see. Let's go back. That's pretty much it. It's, like I said, it's more of a foundation, but it's proving to be useful. A couple of notes. It's beta. There's bugs. You know, we have the 3 modules that we've talked about here. The foundation is there to build additional modules in, so you know we're going to be trying to work on that pretty good. You know, 'cause there's a lot of other interesting areas of information like paste bin or whatever that we would want to be able to monitor like this. So we're going to be working towards that. The other thing is, based on what I told you before, the portability was sort of an attractive thing at this stage. As it grows, as you've got maybe 100,000 lines in your database, this design is probably not going to scale too well. So we have to start looking at being able to build in the ability to write to more mature database models or database management systems. So that'll all hopefully come in the future. And then basically what we want to do is create a really easy way to write a module. So, looking at doing something where you basically just importing, a group of, Python modules that you need, like the source in the core or the output in the core, and then you write your code so that you're getting whatever information you want. You just basically, initiate an instance of an output class, assign your data to the variables, send output, and then the framework will take care of where it goes based on what you've defined in your configuration. So if you want it to go to database, you want to go to flat file, want to go to console. It also does some sanitation and all the normalization and stuff. And then just a couple of other like little features and stuff. Oh, sorry. Let's see here. Like being able to send errors and warnings, whether you want to send it to the console or send it to a log file, redirect that stuff. So trying to build out some like a feature set, almost like a framework, so that when you're writing a module, it's very easy to do. You can just kind of focus on getting your data, and then it's very easy to just assimilate that into the general framework. So future plans, obviously, add more modules, looking at like paste bin, RSS, maybe just a general screen scrape or something like that. Work on the module development, environment so that it's easier to write modules. It takes less code basically. A lot of options for output. The 2 main ones we're looking at is doing some sort of a standard syslog format so that you can just put it right in there with whatever data that you already have that you're aggregating in a SIM. Email notification could come in handy that way. Maybe if you really care about it, you might get an alert, at 2 o'clock in the morning that you need to go look at something in Twitter or whatever. Demonize, it's not demonized right now. That just takes a little code, I guess. And then more scalable option, which we talked about. And then, obviously, because we're talking human networks, languages are problematic. So looking at some ways of supporting some translation and things like that, so that you're not just limited to whatever languages you can understand. And this is where it is on Google Code. So this is the link. And obviously looking for people that are interested, want to join up, probably write better code than I do. So welcome you, join the project. We'll look at some really creative ways of getting all this data in, and getting it where it's actionable. Because as Jason said before, it almost becomes, an intrusion prediction system, because you see the planning stages of things, you see the geopolitical trends, the climate, the anger over something, and you start to be able to, start making, some assumptions about what might come and where it's going to be hitting you if it in fact does. So that is pretty much it. And have I blown through this? Well, any questions? Yeah.
Yeah. My security posture. Are we expecting that the people looking to hack my organization are going to post about it on Facebook first?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Thank you.
Plus one.
Well, even anecdotally, you might, be interested. Oh, sorry. I'll go ahead. Go ahead.
There's plenty of proof that data coagulation and data density grows with performance data. And that is a direct correlative to attack cost algorithm. That's
And we feel this is stuff that we have used to a successful degree, I think. And that's why we wanted to give it back. We want to get this out there and get people contributing because we feel like it's a useful tool. And of all the tools that we've used, if we can somehow, put this type of thing around what's already out there, great. That gives us that added, the ability to focus it down a little more on the potential issues or what might happen.
Right. I mean, and it may not be enormously applicable to all people, in your roles in whatever organizations you work in, but it does actually have a lot of flexibility. I mean, you could, use your, Department of Transportation's Twitter feed to check the traffic before you go home for work, and have a high alert, if there's some kind of accident on your highway. I mean, there's just a lot of different ways to do it. As he said before, a company could use it to trend the receptiveness of some product that they put out there. They could look for, negative words or positive words and see where their, where their customer base is sort of, at with, how well they like the product. Of course, for us, as for you guys, we're looking at it more as sort of a defense tool for network for information security. So that's the way that we use it. We've used it, and it's been very helpful. Yes. Yeah, Pasteman's API is tough because the searching, they use Google CSE, and Google's like ridiculously hard to automate queries against. Oh, really? I guess I'm trying to reinvent the wheel then. Yeah. Yeah, there's absolutely a lot more work to be done on the transforms and stuff, and I thank you for saying the GUI was pretty, but I didn't put as much time as you would think on that, but the reality is, it is a start. We've already thought about a lot of that. I mean, it's every time I sit down and look at it, I think of some new way to transform the data, and to that end. I know there's a lot of people out there that are a lot smarter than we are that may have some, good analyses techniques, analysts, statisticians, things like that could use this data, make it more interesting, make it more valuable. Yes. You could basically just start a new database, or, you could go in there and you could take out something, like, because you have a timestamp in there, so you could take it out from there. It's something we could probably build in as an option too, is, to just, if you want to set it so that things roll off after a certain amount of time, that wouldn't be very difficult.
Feature request.
Yeah. Right. Oh, yeah, sorry. I think you had yours. So.
Maybe.
Yes. Well,
maybe.
Yeah, I mean, the false positives, humans are really unpredictable. So, you do miss some things, at times, but then as the information or the intelligence that you gather sort of makes your, the next decision about what you want to look for more accurate, so if they're talking SQL injection against your company or something like that, then you can turn your attention to things that are around that, to get better information out. So it's sort of always evolving in the process, but it's just sort of a way to take a break and turn it over to somebody else, or even just let it run by itself and then come back, or hopefully get some sort of alert out of it in an automated fashion, so that you're not just burning the candle at both ends, up all night, refresh, just to see what's going on. Because in the heat of an attack like that, especially, like the hacktivism kind of scene, a lot of that stuff is done in open channels, by the very nature of it. And, you don't want to miss a thing, because you never know when they're going to say, oh yeah, check out this URL, I've got SQL injection on this app or whatever in your company. You want to try to stay ahead of those things as much as possible. So that's, sort of, hopefully that answers kind of your question. Were there any more?
You're an amazing, great team, right?
Yeah.
I just wanted to make a comment about the bug you're talking about with reaching out to Facebook and Twitter and having them, denying you after so many refreshes.
Yeah.
And I was thinking with a tweet that it seems to be pretty efficient at being able to keep that live stream possible going. I was wondering if there's any the API you all will allow us to that. And if
They may be paying for something.
third parties for that real-time updates.
Yeah, I mean, that's always a challenge because, trying not to have to pay for anything. I don't know, TweetDeck may have some sort of a business agreement with Twitter for unlimited API queries or something like that, whereas, it's sort of limited to what you can do for free, and trying to find ways to do it. I mean, the data that you get from something like this is not nearly as time sensitive as the data you're going to get from, an IDS system. If it's 5, 10, 15 minutes old, sometimes that's usually not that big a deal. So, those refresh intervals can be longer, to deal with the API.
But as far as you're concerned, there's no such thing as a push model in the API, so you don't have to worry about refreshing, having servers and
Not that I'm aware of, at least not with Twitter, but there may be. I have to investigate some more. It changes all the time. They're always changing that kind of stuff. I think now they're starting to introduce ads, and things like that. So, I'll have to look and see if that's going to be impactful, at all.
my second comment, I just wanted to say on the modules that you are working on for students and everything, in my experience, beautiful soup.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely. Beautiful Soup is the project there. Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's absolutely coming, pretty quickly. I know there's a standardized syslog format that probably, you could use Splunk to get that data and just have it push out in that format so that you can get all your data in one spot. And you don't have to go to yet another console, It should be pretty easy to do. Oh, over here. Oh yeah, yeah. Don't run this on especially the IRC one. Don't run it from your company network. Right. Yeah. I mean, as it stands, there's even somewhat of an ability to do that because you can define the path of your database. So if you have some way to, do it remotely and then have it log locally, and then you can spin up an instance of Spice Mango on that other, on that database that the other instance is collecting on, and you can use the web GUI on your local one. So you've got all the API calls coming from, a different IP. You can look at it locally on your own,
Amazon
network.
has some nice free stuff that you can use too, like
EC2, micro instances, stuff like that. All right, well, we're a little early, but you guys probably aren't not complaining, so if that's it, I think we are done.
Good.